Hello everyone. Today we're going to be doing block 3 in solving linear equations. So let's jump right in. It says in the beginning of this exploring you solve the equation 3x plus 6 equals -6 using a table. Now you'll solve the same equation using a graph. To solve an equation by graphing, you can graph carefully on paper and read your graph, or you can use graphing technology to represent the equation and then graph the graph to find the solution, or try the graph to find the solution. For this problem, we will use the graphing tool to solve the equation. So if we first look at our graph here, it says to solve 3x plus 6 equals -6 by graphing, first we need to graph the equation y equals 3x plus 6. So we're going to create that graph by dragging these 2 points, and then once you're done, just to check your answer, you can hit check to see if you were right or wrong. When we are graphing, we need to look for where we begin, or our B, or our y-intercept. In this case, our y-intercept is 6. Now that's the y-intercept because it's the last number and there's no variable on it. So I know the y-intercept is going to go on the y-axis, so I'm going to move my y-axis dot up into 6. Now if you notice, every axis on this graph is going up by 2s, so be careful when you're trying to graph your own graph. Then I'm going to look at my slope. My slope is 3. I know my rise over run is going to give me my slope. If there's nothing underneath the 3, I know I can put a 1 there. So if my rise is 3, my run is going to be 1. So I'll move my other one up. Now from 6, I'm going to go up 3, so 7, 8, 9. And then I'm going to go over just 1. Now you see that it's in the middle here because it's only going up by 2s here. So I want it to go up 1, not 2, to the next line. Just like 9 is in between 8 and 10. So I'll hit check. Good job. Now it says go to the next panel of the animation to use the graph to solve this equation. So now that we've graphed it, we need to find the point on the graph where y equals -6. So on the y-axis here, I'm going to look and see where does it equal -6. I see -6 right down here. So if I go over, looks like my point at -6 is right there. So I can grab my dot and drag it down to -6, and I have my answer right here. Let's check the answer. It says good job, so I got it right, but we need to put our coordinates in. Remember the x comes first, so our x coordinate is going to be -4. And then we said that the y had to be -6. So we have -4, -6. The solution to the equation is x equals, well, if y is -6, we said at -6, x is -4. That must mean that x has to be -4. If we hit check, as we have it right, which means we can move on. Remember, if you're getting confused, turn this video or pause this video, slow it down, watch it back. Anything that you need to do to make sure you get. On the next page, we are going to look at an equation that has 2 sides to it. So it says now solve 5x minus 7 equals 5 minus x. Now it says when the variable appears on both sides of the equal sign, we have to graph both sides of the equation by treating each side like a function. Then look for the point of intersection. Because this intersection point is shared by both functions, the value of the x coordinate of the intersection point is the solution of x in the equation. What is the value of the x coordinate in this intersection point? So because we're doing online learning and we can't do many graphs right now, I'm just going to pull out my graphing calculator by going up to the top right. If I pull up my graphing calculator, it will come up with our Desmos graph. So it says to graph both sides of the equation. So the first side of the equation is 5x minus 7. That's my first line. Then I'm going to go to the second line, and it says my next one is 5 minus x. So now I have two lines, and I have a point where these points meet. So what I can do is I can zoom in on that point. I see my point of intersection is right about there. If I click on that point, it tells me my answer is 2, 3. So remember, it said our answer was going to be the x coordinate, which means our answer is going to be 2. So I'm going to close that here. I'm going to check my answer. X equals 2, just like what they had we found on our Desmos graph. X equals 2 is the solution to the equation because it makes both sides equal 3. That's why lines that represent each side of the equation intersect at x equals 2, y equals 3. We could substitute this value back into the equation to check our work if we wanted to. Now, that's a good idea if you're confused and making sure that your answer is correct. So we find the intersection again. The intersection point, looking for the x value, and x equals 2 in this case. Now we're going to try one more example. Can we solve 8x plus 10 equals 5? We're going to solve this as we did in the previous example by graphing both sides of the equation. Okay, so I'm going to grab out my graphing calculator again, and I'm going to get rid of the old ones so I can put in some new equations. The first side is going to be 8x plus 10. Whoop. Hold on a second. This calculator is giving me an issue right now. So I can put in that 8x plus 10 as soon as my calculator decides to work. Let's see if I can get this to... Here we go. So I'll put in 8x plus 10. That's going to give me a line. Now the other side of this equation is a little bit different. There's actually no x on the other side of the equation. All there is 5. So if I just put in 5, I know that in this case, x equals 5. Or sorry, y equals 5. So that's going to give me a line that goes straight across here. Now we do have a point of intersection. If we zoom in on this, it looks like it's not at a very good point, which is why I'm going to put a dot onto this graph right at the intersection with my mouse. And if I hover over it, it says my coordinates are negative 0.625 and 5. Now remember, the solution is always the x coordinate if you're looking for x. So our solution this time is negative 0.625. Again, I put in those two equations. The one side was y equals 5 because there was nothing else on the that side of the equation, which gave me a straight across line through y equals 5. Then I found the intersection point, and we took the x coordinate negative 0.625. Let's see if we check our answer, if we got the same thing. That looks like my equations and graphs, and they said that x equals negative 0.625, which is what we got. Now, could we ever find that using a hand-drawn graph? Probably not, because it's such a small number, it's such a small decimal. So this is usually going to be a job for a graphing calculator. That graphing calculator is very helpful when you're dealing with numbers that look like that. All right, that should be the end of block 3. Remember, this is question 3. Make sure you do your reinforced questions well and come back for block 4.